Hello everyone, how are you guys doing? Hopefully having a wonderful Monday. We are back again with another PWCC/Fanatics weekly review where I go through the top 100 soccer items auctioned off this week. This is auction number 190. Every 10th auction they do a vintage special, which is 2002 and prior, so there's a lot of big vintage stuff, a lot of big, even modern stuff in this auction, and a lot of big prices because that's just sort of the way things have been lately, especially in soccer. Soccer's been roaring. It's been just absolutely nuts, to be honest with you. So let's go ahead and get talking about it here. So to get into the top 100 this week, we're talking $1,000, which is about as high as it's ever been, to be honest. So while this auction might not have a ton of big hitters, there's a lot of mid to high end in here, at least for soccer. Other spaces, $1,000 might not be considered high end. I think in soccer, it starts to get you there for sure. There are out of 199 sticker autos here, so that's not necessarily high end, but it depends on how you class it and which players and all that stuff. But we start with a Lamine Yamal auto out of 199, goes for $1,020. We have a BVG Maradona 7.5 for $1,050. I look back at the pricing on this, and this seems about as low as they've gone in this particular grade. I don't know if you check other grades. I'm sure they've been lower in particular sales, but generally speaking, this seemed like a low sale. We have a Gyökeres Gold Select Field Level that goes for $1,000 in a PSA 10. Given it's a PSA 10 and given how crazy Arsenal collectors are, I could see that having some potential, but as everyone knows, he is fairly old in comparison to most prospects, so that always has to be taken into account. Above it, this is an R9 that is not a rookie, but it's classed as a rookie on PWCC's site /Fanatics' site. I don't know why they do that. They just have tons of cards that are labeled as rookies that aren't, and I think they claim that, once it's in our system, it's just sort of, it is what it is, but clearly they can change it, and it's pretty egregious when they don't. I don't know if this got a higher bid due to the rookie labeling. I think the mislabeled rookies of this type are much more of impactful, I guess, during these market roars where people that are spending might not be necessarily people that are fully dedicated in the soccer weeds like many of us, involved with this video are, myself and you, the viewers included. You probably have a better gauge than, some of the people that might be coming in spending this money at this moment. So just wish Fanatics would do better, but, what are you going to do? We got a Vecchi Grinch in a PSA 2 for $1,100. I'm surprised that only has 21 watchers, given that's sort of his, iconic rookie. You could say it isn't a rookie. He has earlier items, but in regard to at least attainable early items, this is certainly, by most categories, a rookie. Next to it, you have a 58 Jose Innocente. I also thought that was a decent price on the Vecchi. I'll add that in there, although it is a good-looking copy. The Jose Innocente, that's about as low as they've ever gone. There's been 3 or 4 to sell in the history books here. I closed it earlier, but I think this was the lowest sale, well, tied with some of the others. So, it is what it is. Nice looking sticker, though, for sure. SGC 3 Maradona. This has really bad focus. I would go in and look, but we have so many cards to get through today, so I'm not going to do it. But it did get a pretty low price in comparison to what we'll see later. I would imagine mostly due to that focus and registration. It is a nice looking copy otherwise, so I could see why you'd want it, even if, you don't mind the focus. But nonetheless, this 71 bis, this is the second year 71 bis, still the same number in the set, but my word. This went for $1,200, and you could have got this in February for $250. So a cool, 5x on that. Nothing to see here, right? Just crazy stuff in regard to all Messi's. And really in regard to the market as a whole, as we'll start to, continue to see here. Messi PSA 8 for $1,200. These were, easily $500 last year, almost any time you wanted them. This Palarex was a really low sale, a PSA 2 for $1,200. Now the back, doesn't look bad, doesn't look great either. The front does have a little bit of OC, some discoloration, so I think it's a bad looking 2, to be fair. But I think if you're just looking at the slab, if you're looking at the grade, I think a 2 for $1,200 is a really good deal. Granted, it's not the best looking 2, but, what are you going to do? We got a Rummenigge, Beckenbauer, and Sepp Maier auto here for $1,260. We have, again, another crazy sale, PSA 6 of this Campio Messi for $1,260. I would imagine a year or two ago you could have found these for $200-$300 pretty easily, and that goes for $1,200 there. I will say it's a pretty clean-looking copy from what I can tell on the front, so maybe that's part of the math playing in here, but I'm not quite sure. Above it, a U.S. team postcard from 1922 Olympics. This is a pretty highly coveted postcard within this subset. The U.S. doesn't have a lot of stuff prior to the 50s, so almost anything you can find is worth a pretty good penny. And this might be the earliest in regard to what you can find, because the U.S. wasn't doing a whole lot back in the day in regard to soccer across the globe. So Patrice Evra 2014 Gold World Cup Prism for $1,300. We'll see some more golds as we go. Starball, Rose Gold, Erling Haaland. Just makes me want to puke. Like, I mean, you got a brand like Topps Chrome, and you have superfractors in there, but then you just water it down by throwing in rose gold star balls. Like, it's just, it just looks nasty. Why do we got to do that? Anyways, Gazette to Pele. This is a cutout from a vinyl album. For those that are unaware, just want to throw that out there. That's why it is pretty low price in regard to other Pele rookies. PSA 4 still gets $1,300 there. Paolo Maldini PSA 9 for $1,380. I think those have been a little bit below $1,000 at times, but I don't think that's a crazy high sale. A red Kylian Mbappe out of 10. I always at least have thought of the Topps Chrome Reds sort of along the same lines as Prism Golds in the Panini space. So I think that the red Chromes are a pretty cool get. PSA 10 as well for $1,400. Assumes a raw would be like $400 or $500, which, doesn't seem crazy. It's definitely, respectable, but nonetheless, we have a 59 Rivera Nanina for $1,440. I looked it up and closed it because there was only a couple sales. They were lower grades and they sold for like $400 to $650. So this was a higher grade that got certainly a higher price at $1,440. There will be another Nanina, well, not Nanina, but there will be another Rivera here shortly. We have a Zany Miazza 1927 chocolate card here in action. PSA 1 goes for $1,500. A Rafael Varane jersey number 4 of 10. PSA 9 for $1,500. We have a Miazza you don't see all too often. PSA 7, super high grade as well, and goes for $1,500. Hugo Lloris Gold Prism for $16. This Cristiano Ronaldo PSA 8 for $16 as well, when you could have gotten a PSA 9 in July for $679 in a PSA 9. So, you went from a $600 price tag for a 9 to a $1,600 price tag for an 8. So definitely quite the move. But in retrospect, looking back on this, I mean, man, $600, nearly $700 for a PSA 9 color Ronaldo Prism is pretty crazy if we think about it. Because there was a time, and there was a long time, like a year or two, where people were paying $700 or more for base PSA 10 Prisms. And those are pop thousands. And you got, an out of 199 going for well below $1,000. I mean, I can sort of see it. Sort of makes sense to me. A Steve Loomer general interest here, PSA 2 for $1,600. We have another Zany Miazza. This is 1920, but it's 1920s. I don't know why. Again, Fanatics decides that they don't want to label that properly, but nonetheless, $1,740 there. 2020 Optic Silver Diego Maradona Historic Ticket out of 75 for $1,800. This Pele Tupanamba in a 2 goes for $1,800. These have been pretty beaten up, generally speaking. This was a nice looking copy. Good colors, good centering. You look at the back looked pretty clean. It's a nice looking 2 for $1,800, and I don't mind it. I think at this point it's been beaten up enough, probably, for not being a rookie anymore. It had quite the premium because people thought of it as a rookie. I don't think people really look at it that way anymore. And given that that's not the case, I love the look of it. It's one of my favorite looking early Peles. Now, granted, it's not a rookie, but it's still a really cool sticker. Nonetheless, a Plus Ultra next to it, Pedro Ochoa here from 1926, SGC 1 for $1,830. Didn't check the back of this. I know the one we'll see later in the auction had a little bit. So this has sort of the red stripes that have been seen on some of the other Plus Ultras. That will be on the later copy we'll see as well. Pedro Ochoa, notable name, but not the top echelon of name in terms of pre-war South America, but certainly still a name worthy of a decent price point here, $1,830 there. We have a Calciatore Pele PSA 6, $1,830 on that Mira Tutti from 68, which I would imagine is a Pele Registry Chaser, I would guess. 1979 Crack Maradona, super strong grade here. PSA 7 pop 1 of 2, 4 higher, goes for $1,830. Along with that, in a Brill Gold Neymar, PSA 7.5 for $1,800 as well. This is the headshot. There's also sort of a full body in action version as well. Super strong grade again, pop 1 of 1, 7 higher. In terms of pricing, yeah, I mean, if we look at okay, I'm looking at 7 grades here, I guess. But in terms of 7s before, I made fun of this before. This is a BGS 7. I mean, look at that. That's just a disgusting looking 7. I don't know how that ever gets a 7. It's got dirt all over it. Anyways, PSA 7 in 2023 did do 870. Before that, it was worth a good bit more. Neymar was a lot more of a hyped name in the hobby, and people were also much more excited about rookies, particularly him, back in 2021, 2022. So that's not an all-time high price, but it is a pretty strong price relative to where they have been. Johan Cruyff PSA 8 for 1830. That's up a good bit. Those have been as low, I believe, as around 1,000 at times during sort of the bottom of 2023, 2024. So that's up a good bit. Eye appeal sticker as well, though. We have another Cruyff Palarex here. This one, much better colors, much more of a high-end 2. The other one was probably a low-end 2. This one gets close to 2K, which again isn't a crazy number to be honest, but still respectable, I guess. 2004 Mega Cracks number, oh gosh, you're going to test my knowledge here. I want to say 89. I could be wrong on that. I think it's in the 80s. Yeah, it's 89. Okay, cool. Just had to check. But this goes for 2K, which, again, is pretty strong. Not crazy, though. I don't think BGSs have gotten the crazy premiums that some of the PSAs have. Also, this card in particular is pretty available in high grade. So the ones that do get the high grade premium, I guess it's not as likely it's going to be this card because there's a lot more of them. So I think that's important to note. We have a 27 Football Series J.A. Petro, I don't know. Just, give me a break here. This is pretty rare early Dixie Dean SGC 6, also super strong grade pop, 1 of 1 and then higher. I looked up sales. The only sales I could really find were 2 raw ones for $350 and $500 during the booming days of vintage in 2022. Maybe we're getting back there a little bit. I'm not quite sure, but this is a SGC 6, and as you can tell, this one actually has corners and color, and these don't. So definitely worth a premium. In comparison, doesn't seem like a wild premium to be paid on something that much better conditioned, but ultimately don't have a whole lot to go off of there. But it is an early Dixie Dean, also not easy to find, and that is a very prominent name in pre-war. Frank Ribery Gold Prism here goes for $2,100. I thought this was moderately light. I mean, in comparison to the other golds we've seen so far in this auction block, $1,300, $1,500 for lesser players. $2,100 here doesn't seem crazy, and it was lingering pretty low well into the auction block, so I think that was at least relatively a decent deal. This Schiaffino here is 48 Crack Pog. This, I believe, is a rookie for him. I could be totally wrong on that. I feel like there might be some other stuff, but the other stuff's, not as true to collecting form, I guess, or, as typical in what you see in these sorts of collections. But nonetheless, this PSA 2 goes for $2,200. There have been 2 other PSA 2s of this exact Pog to sell, and both of them have been within the range of $1,500 to $2,200. So this is on the higher end of where they've been. We have a Lamine Yamal auto here, just a plain old Sapphire PSA 10 for $2,200. You gotta love it. Above it, this also another pretty good sale, but I guess not as crazy as the 6 we saw earlier. This number 35 goes for $2,200. We have a 31 Miazza here that is not all too typical in these auction blocks. This is pop 1 of 2, just 1 higher, fairly hard to find. There have been a few sales here, one in 2022 of a PSA 3 for $1,500 and one in 2023 of a PSA 1 for $430. So looks like a pretty strong sale, definitely an all-time high for this sticker / card in particular, and definitely interesting to see, as you don't see, well, you see a decent amount of Miazzas, but not like high-end Miazzas in these auction blocks, so that's a cool one to find. Also, this PSA 7 R9, super strong sale. I don't know if maybe some of the money that's been coming into the hobby has moved around a little bit, but R9 PSA 7s of this Deportivo in particular were lingering around 1K for the longest time, and this one definitely got a bump up in price there. Above it, this Neuer 1 of 1 Black Prism goes for $2,600. I actually thought, obviously I wasn't the buyer of it. I know there's more 1 of 1 prisms nowadays too, which is kind of a downer, but just generally speaking, a black, like a true black 1 of 1 of a really prominent player, just, you barely ever see them. So I find it hard to believe that that's a super strong price. I think that that's probably a decent entry if you want to go ahead and get something like that, but clearly still high end by all means. We have a Maldini Forza Gold. The Forza Golds from 85, super hard to find. There was a spurt there in 2022, 2023 where a lot of them came out, but that is seemingly dissipated. And this Maldini sets definitely a record high for the grade, $2,600 for a 1.5. In terms of past sales, we can see that there was a PSA 3 at one point that was doing $820 back in August of 2023 when there was more of these coming out. The first one ever hit the auction block was a 3 that did $1,600, so it's actually I mean, much higher than that. So that's pretty impressive to say the least, and a good sign for that segment in particular. Then we also have this Pele 1970 World Cup sticker. We saw this recently. I'm going to guess it went unpaid. It's harder to tell during these times because with how quick prices change on some things, someone might pay and then just relist it because they think they got a good deal and could sell it. This one goes a good bit less, which leads me to believe that it's probably an unpaid auction. And I like the sticker. I like the player, obviously. I mean, Pele 1970 World Cup sticker is great. IP auto is also great. It's a little shaky of an auto, though, which, from my perspective, is the one downside to this, and I can see why that would impact people. It still seems like a decent price, though, to be fair. $2,700 is definitely nothing to scoff at. And then finally, the last three here on page one, we have a PSA 9 of the number 89 Messi from 2004. We have a PSA 10 Kylian Mbappe sticker. And then finally, a sticker auto of Lionel Messi from 2021 Topps Oyogo Bonito, which, yeah. The Mbappe is up a little bit, I do believe. I think that was closer to 2K at times, so that's up a good bit. And, of course, the Messi's up too. Not a whole lot to read into there. On to page one we go. And on page one, here we go. Lots of fun stuff to talk about. So we start with the PSA 3 of the 1978 Crack Maradona here. $3,000 on this one, which, I think it's because it's a good-looking copy, really. Really good registration, good centering, good colors. The back doesn't look, torched by any means. There's definitely, some stuff on the corners and all that good stuff, but that's why it's a 3, I would imagine. So 3,000 is really strong on that. There were definitely not as good-looking 3s on eBay. I had picked one up for like $700, which I thought was a steal. Compared to this, it certainly is, but I also don't think it's as good looking of a 3, so that's always to be taken into account. So we saw the SGC 3 do like $1,200 or something, but that was a really bad looking 3, so you see how it sort of scales. Next to it, Cristiano Ronaldo out of 50 Topps Gold Auto from 2013. We'll see another one in a 9.5 here in a second, but fun card. It is a sticker auto, and it also is sort of a throwback card since he wasn't on Manchester United back then, so while it is early and numbered, it also has a couple things going against it for sure. Then next to the Ronaldo, we have a 2004 Este sticker of Messi in a 7.5 BGS grade going for $33.60. This also very strong. This has moved a lot lately. I was luckily enough able to manage a BGS 8 a few weeks back. I got that for $1,400 to $1,500 in that range. I just had seen a lot of the other Messis move, and this one really hadn't yet. So I was like, well, I figured I'd grab another, add it to the stash, and I was very surprised by how quick this has moved. A 7.5 for $3,300. Pretty OC as well. Doesn't look incredibly wavy in the slab, which might factor into it as well, but certainly a strong price there as that starts to make a move. One of one select patch Messi for $3,300. Authentic grade as well. Pele Alifa team image for $3,500 nearly. We also have a Montcudine disc Di Stefano and a PSA 2 for $3,400. These have come under fire. Under fire, I don't know. They've just been highly debated within the last couple years. These have basically existed in the soccer collecting sphere for over a decade. People have known about them for a long time, but a lot of South American, particularly Argentine collectors have, at least of recently, sort of come out and said that these are fakes, that they're from certain things that they don't deem to be authentic. So there seems to sort of be a split between worldwide collectors that have seen these for ages and basically thought them to be true, and they still could be. And then there's some big-time Argentine collectors who seem to deem these as inauthentic, so there's a big split there. I think PSA is not grading them anymore, but there still are other companies that do, so it's just sort of iffy territory, generally speaking, but still a decent number there at 35. Above it, 2015 Futera Messi Ronaldo dual patch. These are both game-used patches. I believe the Ronaldo one was also from a game against Barcelona and a Champions League or something of the sort. It was a pretty prominent patch, and this gets $3,600 here, which is certainly a big number, but Messi Ronaldo stuff is, always doing big numbers. Topps one of one Messi here, sort of an odd-looking one, but it's a one of one Messi, and that gets 4K, because why wouldn't it? Right? 1959 Vav Gianni Rivera rookie PSA 6 for $4,080. There actually have been some sales higher in the past. One here for $8,300 on the Fanatics Buy It Now, and one at $8,500 as well. I think this is the same copy, so assuming that Buy It Now holds true, it dropped quite a bit between those two sales. But people really like the Vav Gianni Rivera, incredibly collected as well for the era, and super strong grade, pop 1 of 2, none higher, and we just saw the two that there were to offer. So in this row, gold Kareem Benzema, $4,200 there for a PSA 8. which in comparison to the others, I could see why he gets a good premium there. We also have a Messi Green 2022 sticker from the Panini World Cup set. In America, this was a parallel, and the hardest to get parallel other than the one of one. We'll see one of those later. But incredibly hard, as you can tell, by the grade and the price. That definitely sort of bodes true here. 4.6K on that. We also have a stained glass Lionel Messi. This is a PSA 10 first-year stained glass that went for $5,300. There was a birdie that reached out and told me that this is about a pop 30, which, generally speaking, compared to the more modern case hits, that's going to be, fairly rare. It had a nice looking one. I've always loved the stained glass design, and this sort of has like a church feel in terms of not just the stained glass, but the texture around it and sort of the architecture you got going on there. A very interesting row here. Two Ronaldo on-card autos, but there's one on-card, one on sticker, and then you have an Estevao Gold Select Field Level for $5,500. Sort of weird when you think about prospecting, because the idea behind prospecting is always that, you can get in on someone that isn't quite Messi and Ronaldo, but could be one day. And so it's like, well, if the opportunity cost of not buying this Ronaldo is buying this Estevao, I mean, you're hoping that Estevao is going to eventually be greater than Ronaldo? Like, I mean, this is an Eminence on-card auto out of 5, first-year Eminence. Pretty significant, generally speaking. I'm sure there's better cards within Eminence than this Grand Signatures, but still, do you really need to prospect when you could just buy great cards of the all-time greats for the same price? Like, yeah, I don't quite get it, but to each their own. Anyways, in this row, I would pick the Eminence Grand Signatures for sure. 2013 Topps, again, good card, nice looking, early year as well, which is important to some, but I just, for me, I always sort of look down upon playing days cards that aren't actually in the kit that they're supposed to be in that year. It's just a little bit of a throwback, kind of chintzy, but at the same time, congratulations if you got the card. I still think it's a fun one. I just personally would rather take the Eminence one, as that would be my card of choice. I also would imagine that the Eminence Ronaldos probably are hampered by the Eminence Messis, because people look at Messi and Ronaldo and they're like, well, they should be fairly equal in value, but the Ronaldo on-card autos from Eminence are actually real, presumably, and the Messis are not. So, that's also a factor, of course. Above it, alternatively, you can go for Kabooms. We got a Kaboom Messi PSA 9 or Lamine Yamal PSA 9. Again, why prospect if you don't have to? I don't know. One of them is a rookie, but one of them, I was going to say this is first year Kaboom Messi, but it's not. There's a 2017 we'll see later. But you get the idea. I mean, come on. Messi Immaculate out of 5 here goes for $6,300. I believe also a sticker auto, which is certainly something, but nonetheless, that goes for a decent number as well. In this row, 63 for the PSA 10, just base International Ink Messi from 2022 Prism. Seems like a crazy number to me. Certainly strong. Next to it, you have a PSA 9 Campio, also certainly strong. Very decent for sure. Those at one point were probably lingering between $1,500 and $2,500, I'd imagine, and now clearly above 6 on auction. In this row, I thought the Pele was the one to have, to be honest. I mean, the other Messis are fairly replaceable. To me, an Aquarella Pele rookie auto is just something really, really slick. I like it a lot. I will spoil it and say I've actually bought one recently, not as good as this one, but I just think, rookie on-card Pele autos for the price of like Messi base Prism World Cup stuff. Man, I just think it's incredible value. Here, you do have the auto that sort of has like some streakiness here, or maybe like a hand smudged it or something. I'm not quite sure. So the auto isn't perfect, but it is a non-shaky auto. It does look really good. The colors on the card are good. The card in general is nice. PSA 3 as well. And I think the Aquarella is probably one of the rookies you'd want to have an autograph on, just because it's a good-looking rookie. A lot of his rookies are really small, don't look great with autos, and then a lot of his autos on his rookies are just bad autographs. They're shaky and they look rough. This one, for my eyes and for my money, I'd take it over most anything we've looked at so far. And also, surprisingly, or maybe not, it's also got a ton of watchers with 120 there. So I did see who the winner of that was in the Vintage Discord. Congrats to them. That was a great buy, I thought. Vintage Discord, as always, linked down below. great space to talk to other people about really any era of card, but primarily vintage people are in that zone. Keeping it moving. Above it, you got an all-time high here for Kieran Richardson. I think that's who's here. Yeah, there you go. Kieran Richardson pulling in some fat dough. His auto actually looks pretty good, so I will give him that. While he might not have been the player of Ronaldo, he is a much better signer. And a pretty clean-looking auto. Kind of reminds me of Mbappe's auto a little bit, the second half of it. But anyways, Cristiano Ronaldo 2004 SP Authentic goes for $6,600, which is certainly a decent number. I mean, especially considering that he's not the only player. There's another player detracting from the greatness that is CR7 on there. Next to it, take your pick between the two Lamine Yamal's 2023 Stained Glass Rookie PSA 10 or a Mega Cracks PSA 10 108 bis. I would take the stained glass. I really don't like the look of stained glass that year. Generally speaking, as I said earlier, I like the looks of stained glass. I think this one's probably one of the worst looking ones. Now, maybe if you have it in hand, it shines good. I don't quite know. But I would take a lot of things before Mega Cracks Lamine Yamal. I know it's got the legacy and the lineage, but it's mass-produced, and mass-produced nowadays is much different than mass-produced 20 years ago when no one cared, no one was keeping this stuff. A PSA 10 nowadays is not going to be hard. And so for that reason, just, give me a stained glass. But nonetheless, you also know that we are in booming days of soccer when 2003 Upper Deck Manchester United Ronaldos and PSA 10 are doing good numbers, and this one certainly is. So let's give it a look. Did I close it? I closed it. Well, shucks. All right. This was as low as $1,000 to $2,000 at times and is currently sitting at 8.4. So pretty decent. Pretty decent move up there. And I do like the cards. I just, for me, if I was going to get something that was rookie era for this much money, I would just go after an actual rookie. But I can understand that these are cool looking cards and, I get that. But there is numbered cards in Upper Deck 2003. There's, numbered to 7s cards that are out there that are super cool. There's, we saw an auto earlier. There's just alternatives that, I would probably rather have for this price point, but also just very good price point. And clearly someone wanted to spend that on that card. So congratulations to them. Another high price here, this PSA 9 Mega Cracks number 35 Messi for $8.7K. Again, a card you probably could have for like $2K at times, and currently sitting nearly at 10. So a decent run up there on that one. And the Messi mania continues. PSA 4 Pele here, Aquarella for 8.7. Again, just a situation that I think shows the value of the Pele auto. I mean, this is a 3 card. This is a 4 card. So you're literally just going up a grade in card, and it's $2,000 higher, which is probably about right. But then you also get an autograph. Like, for me, man, that's just so cool. PSA 4 here, the grading on these cards is always tricky because you got the perforated edges. So, like, how true to form are all the perforations going to be? You never really know, but it does look good from here. So I'll give it that. Also a fairly strong price. There were times certainly where like 5s were going this low and maybe even lower. So a 4 at this point is a pretty decent price. Eminence Messi, which as we know, the autographs, no bueno. And that goes for 8.7, which is still a decent number. Not as decent as this PSA 9 Top Liga for 9K. I did bring up the sales on this, and we'll look at the sales on this and the foil, I guess, at the same time. You'll see here that the foil did 16.2 last night, as we'll see later in this auction block. The non-foil does 9. These are fairly hard to grade as they have black and yellow borders, and the surfaces aren't great, generally speaking. But literally in July, you could have got a foil for 3.5, and like 2 to 3 months later, it just went for 16.2. So, a little bit of a bump, The non-foil was 2.5 in July. If we go back further, in May, you could have got a non-foil for $1,100. Oh my gosh, from $1,100 to $9K in less than or basically half a year. Just bonkers. Again, just bonkers. I don't know what to say. 2022 Kaboom Messi PSA 10 9,300. I didn't look that one up because generally we've looked at enough Kabooms to know that they were up and they were doing well. He probably could have got this for like $2,000, $3,000 at some point, and now it's at 9.3. Probably the same for these other Kabooms here. You do have a 2017 first year select Kaboom, and I know it's a PSA 9, but generally speaking, it probably would be decent value given it's a PSA 9 and these are 10s. I mean, I'd take one less grade for a first year, but nonetheless, Luis Monti in between them with the 1926 Plus Ultra. We saw the Ochoa earlier. This is a much more desirable and collected pre-war player. And we did see, I think it was an Orsi that was from the same set that did like 20,000 plus or minus a little bit. And so this isn't quite at that level, but certainly could have been. Seemingly not a crazy price, but still decent, and 52 watchers on a pretty premium pre-war item like that is also nice to see. Then above it, we have a stained glass 2022 here. This is about the same pop, maybe, well, actually it's a little bit lower than the stained glass we saw earlier, but it is later year. It also does have Messi when he wasn't at Barcelona, in Barcelona, which, as I've mentioned before, not really my cup of tea. But nonetheless, this gets a good number here at nearly 10K. A 2023 finest out of 5 auto of Lamine Yamal goes for 10.2. The first of a few 71 bisses that we'll see, a PSA 6 for 10.5, which, of course, is very solid. You also have a National Landmarks 2018 Messi for 10.8. Doesn't strike me as crazy high when you consider the stained glass here is nearly at 10K as well. And National Landmarks, generally, I would imagine, is more desirable. I also think this Messi, a red Topps Chrome Auto, 12K. I know in comparison to a lot of other things, you could say, well, this is high, whatever. But, is it? Like, me personally, you got Kabooms going in this range. Would I rather have a Kaboom or a red Chrome Barca Playing Days PSA 10 Auto with an 8-card grade? But, when you see, recently there was a Select Black that went, I think it was on Golden, for like 400K. And it was first year Select and all that good stuff. But when you see stuff like that, when, fairly meaningful cards are getting 400K, this is a pretty meaningful card in my head as well. And it's only sitting at 12, which I say only, it's still good money. But I think for the price point that's a fun Messi to go ahead and snag. So congrats to the buyer there. I think that was a decent one. Then you have a Ronaldo 2019 Chronicles Historic Ticket. This goes for 13.8. A lot of people really love this set. The Historic Ticket Messi and Ronaldo get a lot of love from this set. And certainly, as you can tell here, this is no different. Then we get into the top 9. So we start with a Topps Dynasty Messi out of 10 PSA 9 that we'll see another one of here in a second. That's higher grade. This one goes for 15K, which is fairly strong, but not out of line for Messi by any means. We have the foil that we just talked about at 16.2 that you could have had for 3K just a few months ago, which, again, just crazy. I've always thought the foil was underrated. I don't know if I'd say that as much anymore, but nonetheless, I do think it's a cool card in the sense that it's his only rookie foil, and the multi-person card doesn't put me off as much as it probably does others. Generally, I don't mind it, and pretty decent price to say the least there. Alternatively, PSA 7 next to it for the 71 bis at 21K. Again, these have been doing well. What's there really to say? We know where those have been and where they are now. Probably could have gotten this for, around about $5,000 there for a good while. A row of nothing but Messi here. Take your pick of the bunch. You got a Topps Dynasty out of 10 PSA 10 for 22.8. You have the PSA 10 number 89 for 24, and the PSA 10 number 62 for 25.8. I've always thought the 62 should hold a good premium over the 89. Mostly because it's a lot harder to grade. I do believe the Campione green is like extremely rare in a 10. This is a Campione, if assuming everyone's labeling these correctly, which you can never really assume, but let's just do it. In this row, I'd probably take the 62, but I could totally see taking a Topps Dynasty patch as well. I always wonder with Messi, like, he's going to sign. They're going to have more patches, more autographs, and so for me, a PSA 10 rookie does do a lot. But I could totally see going for the Dynasty. And then finally, top 3 for this week. A heavy hit in top 3, if I'm going to be honest with you. A number 71 bis PSA 8 for $36,000, which again, pretty strong. I think we might have seen a sale higher at times. I could be totally wrong on that. Maybe that's an all-time high. I guess I should check. Yeah, my word. I said it might have been low. No, this is an all-time high and by a large margin. PSA 8 back in 2021 was 19.6. And now we're looking at nearly double the all-time high from 2021. And you could have got it for 5 to 6K literally last year. Now you're looking at 36. It's just crazy. Again, I think it's one of the best soccer cards we have. I think it's been underrated. Clearly it's a lot easier to say that now, but I always thought it was underrated, but the thing is, so many people were excited about, ultra-modern stuff and numbered stuff and all this stuff that has more shine, more color, more this, more that. Maybe it's got a patch, maybe it's got an auto. Everyone was so distracted with other things that when those Messis were low, you kind of think, well, maybe they stay low. Maybe people are going to be distracted forever. And then something like this happens and they go up 7x and, you're just totally left dumbfounded, basically. You're like, what, what just happened? And I would imagine we can't stay here forever, I don't know if we stay at 36 forever. We could go higher, could go lower, but when when you see a graph like that, I mean, it's just a little nervy to say the least. But I don't feel it's undeserved at the same time, so it's tricky. But nonetheless, next to it, a Puskás Nanina from 1946. This PSA 6 goes for $60K, which is a pretty strong price, but also, pretty strong card. We have, in terms of all-time high prices, a PSA 9 did $310 in the past. That's the highest grade. There might be, I don't know if there's another 9 or not, but there are some other high grades. As you can see here, an 8.5 did 72, and just earlier this year in February, that's looking like a pretty good buy. If you got an 8.5 for 72 and now a 6 just sold for 60, doesn't seem like a bad pickup. But a super big, just a super big vintage card here. The true rookie of Puskás, and as you can see here, a 7 that had sold for 51 on Fanatics Premier. Another 7 that sold for 18. This one also doesn't have focus, and there's probably some other detractors from this in particular. But yeah, seemingly that 6 was a super strong sale in comparison to some of the sales we saw last year around these same times. So again, another strong sale there. And then finally, the 2022 Black World Cup sticker of none other than Cristiano Ronaldo. That's a very fun sticker. 1 of 1 from the first time that they did 1 of 1 stickers for the World Cup. Just a super big sticker and a super fun one. And that one gets $78K, which is a strong price. The Messi, which I had closed off, I think the Messi did 140, maybe a little less, like 135 or something. But the Messi sold for a good bit more than this, but it was a PSA 8. And of course, he did win the World Cup. So comparatively, I feel like this did a pretty good price. I also don't think the Messi would probably do 140 again if it sold right now. I think it would do a good bit higher, so I think that's worthy of note as well. But still a super strong sale here with this Ronaldo, and a really fun week overall. Just tons of high prices. Soccer is just going crazy. Again, I don't look at the index as much on Card Ladder because generally I don't think it's the best, but some of these are my personally made indexes. There's a Ronaldo, there's a Soccer 51, there's a Messi, but this is just the base Soccer index, up 53% over the last literal month. And you can see other sports are doing well. There's a lot in the green, but most of them are like 5 to 10%, which is much more healthy. We're up like 50% over the last month, which is it's a good chunk up, but it's a little nervy as well. So we'll take a look at next week, see what we got. 7.5 Palarex is a pretty good catch there. I mean, my word. You would hope the back looks good on that, but you never quite know. It's got a eye appeal sticker as well, which PWCC doesn't put in the titles, I don't think. You'd have to check other copies and see if this looks normal, like this sort of text loss, but that could be normal for sure. PWCC did add, their Fanatics did add that. On some of them they don't, so I think there's some value there if you can look at the sticker and see that it actually has a sticker, but they don't mention it. I think there's value. PSA 9, Calciatore Maradona as well, golly. PSA 671 Bis, we got a flawless Ronaldo, a Kaboom, Lamine Yamal, a bad Messi auto. PSA 8 Charlton's a super strong grade. PSA 8 Monday Chromo. PSA 8 Beckenbauer. My word, we got some fun ones as well next week. Not as strong as this week, of course, was never gonna be, but another Miazza, gold Messi, tie-dye Messi. Lots of fun stuff to be had as well. So should be a good week next week. Hopefully you're looking forward to it. I know I am. And that's going to do it for this week. So hopefully you enjoyed. As always, if you did, make sure to leave a like. I'd appreciate it greatly. Anything you bought, sold, or thought went high or low, would love to hear about it and comment down below. And if you want to see more videos like this as soon as I go live, make sure to subscribe. But with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.